Detroit, Saturday, May 2nd, 2015. The African History Network lecture series presents a screening and discussion of the new documentary, Resurrecting Black Wall Street. This is a screening and discussion with Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network show. I will also do part 2 of my presentation, Empire Strikes Black, the Propaganda of the Media. The documentary Resurrecting Black Wall Street deals with some of the history of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, what we need to do to create another Black Wall Street as well. One of the most egregious human rights violations of the last century occurred during the Black Wall Street Massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921. During this time, one of the most affluent African American communities in America was burned to the ground and stripped of its wealth as thousands were killed, jailed, hospitalized, and displaced by angry racist mobs. I am featured in this documentary as well as from Your Black World Films. I will also do part 2 of Empire Strikes Black, the Propaganda of the Media. Now, this presentation will deal with the propaganda of the media and how negative depictions of African Americans influence the way people think, feel, act, and behave. Most people think that TV shows, movies, songs, etc. are just entertainment. The history and evidence prove that this is wrong. Some of the topics that I will deal with in this presentation are: how does excessive TV watching damage the self-esteem of African American children? Historical examples of African Americans fighting back economically, and much, much more. We'll also deal with the TV show Empire and the negative images of African Americans that it projects. We'll also deal with how the media convinces you that most criminals are African Americans. And we will talk about the economic boycotts that took place in March of 2015 in the state of Indiana behind the signing of the Indiana Religious Freedom Law, and what African Americans can learn from this. We'll deal with all these topics and much, much more. This is a free event. Donations will be accepted. This is taking place Saturday, May 2nd, 2015, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Nandy's Knowledge Cafe, located at 12511 Woodward Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan, 4 blocks south of the Davidson Freeway between Glendale and Highland Street. For more information, please visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can also give us a call at 313-462-0003, 313-462-0003, or contact Nanny's Knowledge Cafe at 313-865-1288, 313-865-1288. Food including vegetarian dishes. Food, including vegetarian dishes, will be sold by Nandy. And be sure to listen to the Michael Imhotep Show Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time on the Empowerment Radio Network. And listen to the African History Network Show with host Michael Imhotep Thursdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Blog Talk Radio Network. For more information about our radio shows and anything else, please visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Part 1 of Empire Strikes Black, the Propaganda of the Media, is available on DVD and digital download at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Mod Hotep, and hope to see you there.
The American educational system is never really going to tell this story. Black Wall Street atrocities that occurred in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the 1920s.
The story of Black Wall Street has been buried for 100 years.
We had many millionaires, we had doctors, we had lawyers, we had a library system.
Economic relationship with North Tulsa and South Tulsa, the black portion and the white portion.
People, literally one generation out of enslavement, be able to come together and create a black Mecca that has never, ever, ever been duplicated anywhere else in this country.
Of course, this led to the jealousy.
Economically, they didn't have the success that Greenwood was showing.
During this time, we have to remember we had what they call the Red Summer.
Ku Klux Klan starting to spread into the Midwest.
In Tulsa County, the Ku Klux Klan, they were either heavily into politics, they were members of city council.
U.S. military being used against American citizens with an attack from the air.
One of the little girls says, "Mommy, why is it hailing outside? It's sunny." And she said, "No, it's not hail, sweetheart." She pulled her to the window and she's seen gunfire.
Effectively, what happened in Black Wall Street was that this community was destroyed.
35 square blocks of the town was burned to the ground.
Greenwood did rebuild.
Let's implement the ideas. Let's implement the spirit of cooperative economics. Let's learn from these people.
Black Wall Street was an amazing time. We can reach the same level right now. But once again, if you don't feel like it's possible, then it's not possible.
Just because it happened in 1921, that doesn't mean it can't happen in 2015. Every black child in America needs to know this story.
Okay, so nobody jumped in to break it up. People sitting there recording it. And then they put it on WorldStarHipHop. Okay, now how many people are familiar with WorldStarHipHop? Okay, WorldStarHipHop is like a ghetto YouTube. Okay? All type of degenerative, negative nonsense is put on WorldStarHipHop, travels all around the world, the youth watch it. Ask any teenager, they probably know about WorldStarHipHop. Okay? Now, when you read articles about that fight, now, to be fair, that fight took place March 9th. That fight took place a week before the season finale of Empire. But we've seen things like that before on like reality TV shows, etc. So the question has to be asked, you know, where do they learn this behavior and where do they learn the validation? Okay, because one of the things that was talked about when you read articles, like the Root.com had articles about the fight, one of the things that was talked about was that nobody jumped in to break it up. People standing around reporting, people watching it like it's entertainment. And then, when you read some other articles about it, the girl that got beat up, she could have been killed, number one. I didn't show you all of it, because the main person who was arrested, she was stomping the girl in the head also, kicking her in the head. So she could have been killed. But now, the girl that got beat up is a hood star, because the video is on WorldStarHipHop. So it's bringing her notoriety. There's been articles about this. I'm like, this is some frightening like a bull. Okay? All right, now, let's continue quickly here. Now, when we look at the media, what is media? Media are channels of communication that serve many diverse functions, such as offering a variety of entertainment with either mass or specialized appeal, communicating news and information, or displaying advertising messages. So media is very broad. It's not just TV, radio, it's print, it's song, music, dance, everything. Sure. Okay. Church, well, yeah, you can look at church's media. Yeah, you can look at church's media, especially when they put it on TV. All right, or they want you to donate for the $65 million plane. Yeah. All right. All right. Let's see. Just to lay a historical context, and I got another video I want to share with you as we continue with this. How many people are familiar with Dr. David Imhotep? All right, Dr. David Imhotep. We actually have him here twice, actually, in Andy's Lounge Cafe. He's no relation to me. He's not my father, brother, anything like that. I've interviewed him a number of times. We've done 2 presentations together. He's the author of this book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. He deals with the African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years ago in Allendale County, South Carolina. There was a campsite, and they discovered all these things. There are artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, Egyptian writings, or metal netter, what the Greeks call hieroglyphics, footprints in lava, genetic M174D halfway groups dealing with DNA and genetics, linguistics, paintings, skulls, skeletons, structures, and tools. His book has 713 footnotes thoroughly documenting an African presence in North, Central, and South America going back at least 56,000 years. But he just, when I interviewed him about a month ago, he just shared with me another article from the New York Times from last year that talked about a new discovery, and it basically pushed back the date to about 100,000 years ago in South America of African presence. And his book deals with 13 different disciplines also, okay? So I just want people to know African people are indigenous to this land as well. Even though August 20th, 1619 did happen, I'm not saying that didn't happen, but there were millions of African people in North, Central, and South America before any slave trade, any of that took place, before there's anybody else on the face of the earth for that matter, okay? All right, check out this article also. Father of all humankind is 340,000 years old. This is from March 7th, 2013. How many people saw this? Okay. All right, so this deals with, this article comes from yahoo.com, but it originally came from, I think it was science.com. This deals with a man named Albert Perry. And he lived in South Carolina, And when he died, his family sent his DNA to a company called Family Tree DNA, okay, to test his ancestry. All right. They found that his Y chromosome dates back to an ancestor 338,000 years old. Now, this was shocking for a number of different reasons. Number one, the oldest DNA samples that they had dated back 60,000 to 140,000 years ago at this point in time. Number two, the oldest known fossils of Homo sapiens sapiens that they had dated back 195,000 years ago. So they said that Homo sapiens sapiens. So they said that, well, this can't be right. So they sent it to a nearby university to do more research, and they found it's correct. His Y chromosome dates back to an ancestor 338,000 years old. Now the Y chromosome is passed down from father to son, father to son. This coincides with what a lot of our scholars have been talking about, like Runoko Rashidi. How many people are familiar with Runoko Rashidi? Okay, Runoko. Okay, okay. Runoko is a world traveler. I've interviewed him 6 or 7 times. He has been to 104 countries and islands around the world. Okay, he's in the documentary Hidden Colors 2, The Tribe of Melanin. He's a prolific author. He wrote the book The African Presence in Early Europe, Black Star, The African Presence in Early Europe. He has a book dealing with the African presence in early Asia. And he was a student of Dr. Ivan Van Sertima as well, who wrote They Came Before Columbus. But Runoko Rashidi, as well as people like Dr. Charles Finch, they talk about how Homo sapiens sapiens are 300,000 years old, as opposed to 75,000 or 100,000 years old or 20,000 years old. Okay, so this falls in line with what they've been saying. And with Runoko, if you go online and just Google his name, actually our website will probably come up because you can listen to some of the interviews we did with him. Wherever he goes, he takes pictures documenting the African presence all around the world. So he has a personal library of about 30,000 to 35,000 photographs he's taken all around the world, okay? Whether it's in Australia, he has pictures of the Black Madonna and child all throughout Europe. He has a picture that he took in Prague, Czechoslovakia, of him standing next to a huge statue of an African Moor. Because the Moors were in Prague, Czechoslovakia also. They're in Germany, Austria. These Africans were all throughout Europe. So I mean, he has pictures from all throughout Egypt. I think he has some pictures that he wasn't supposed to take too. Egypt as well. I think he has some of those too. Yeah, he has pictures all throughout. Yeah, he has pictures all throughout the world. So if you Google his name, you're going to get a lot of information on Runoko Rashidi. All right. Runoko. Do I have him in here? Okay, I don't have him here. Runoko and Rashidi. Runoko Rashidi. Okay. I usually do this for Rashidi. Rashidi. Yeah, Runoko Rashidi. Even if you just Google Runoko, it's gonna come up because there ain't too many Runokos. All right, it's gonna come up. All right. Very quickly. Usually do this in the beginning, but I had so much stuff. I had some other things in the beginning. Very quickly. Name Imhotep, because people ask, well, what does Imhotep mean? Imhotep means he who comes in peace, from the Middle Nether language of the ancient Kemetic people, or the Kemet II, what the Arabs call Egyptians, because that's not what we call them. Okay? But Imhotep was a real person. These are some famous statues of Imhotep. He was a high priest, physician, architect, mathematician. He was designer for the step pyramid for Nesut-Binti Zoser, or called Pharaoh. That's not what we call him. Nesut-Binti would be the correct term. You may see it spelled different ways. That was in the 3rd dynasty. He was also known as the world's first multi-genius. Depending upon which timeline you use, you see him living anywhere from 2700 BC to 3000 BC. But since we know that at least 130,000 years of our history has been stolen, I go with the oldest dates I can find, so around 3000 BC. Okay. So this is Imhotep. This is not Imhotep. Okay. In the 2001 blockbuster movie, the sequel, The Mummy Returns, the villain's name was Imhotep. Consequently, many of our children think that one of their greatest ancestors was evil and not of African descent. Okay, and I've heard some kids say this. So they got this Arab, Eurasian-looking actor. His name is Arnold Vosloo. In the movie, he's a high priest from ancient Egypt, and he's what people built. Okay. If you check out my series, having it back, I have a 3-part series, The Media's Deliberate Destruction of the African American Family. I go in depth into a lot of this type of information. The media's, yes.
In covering the media, do you cover anything dealing with subliminal information that you don't hear or see with the conscious mind?
I hadn't gotten to that yet. I do have some information on that. Because there's information dealing with the synthesized music, and how it can put people into a trance. There's information dealing with that. It's like, I have more information than I can actually get to. Yeah, but I do have some information on that, but I have to get to that also. Yes, but one of the things I deal with in part three I did in Cleveland, I did with the push to legalize pedophilia that's going on in America right now. A lot of people don't know about it.
So it's important that you really get to that, because subliminal information is much more powerful than the conscious information.
Yeah, it bypasses
it controls everything.
Yeah, it really gets to the subconscious, and it bypasses the conscious mind.
Like self-hatred.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's but there are ways to identify that. It becomes, when you understand this history, you see plus self-hatred, you see how to identify certain things like that. Because I've been studying this for like 23 years. So certain things just jump out at me. When I watch something, certain things just jump out at me. Whereas like the average person, and one of the things, in '95, I did a presentation at Wayne State University, because that's where I graduated from. And I was dealing with some of this information, the images like TV shows that were on, things like that. And people couldn't understand why certain things were negative. And back at that time, I gave them an example of the TV show Baywatch. Now, I'm not saying Baywatch was a negative show, but I'm just giving an example. Baywatch at one point was the most watched TV show in the world. It was shown in 130 countries around the world back in '95. Okay, this is before we had the internet, all this stuff, Hulu, things like this, okay? And what I was explaining to people is that these images are exported around the world. And at that time, people couldn't understand it. Today, they see it. They see what I was trying to tell them 20 years ago, all right? Okay, let's continue quickly here. All right, this is a picture of the step pyramid for Nasufiti Soldier Pharaoh Zoser. This is one of the early pyramids. It's called a mastaba, flat bench pyramid. This is early pyramid building. You see it evolve over a period of time to the pyramids like we see Khufu and Khafre, Menkaure, and Giza. The ones that are more sloped, and you see how pyramid building evolved. Okay. All right. Very quickly. Now, it takes a lot of work to do these presentations, to put them together. Because if you got here early, as I was telling people, it's one thing to do the research. It's another thing to put that research into a presentation format, and then put that information into a logical sequence. Okay. But 3 main reasons why I do these presentations, because it takes a lot of work to do this. And I tell people, you don't have to believe a word that I say, go do your own research. Number one, do it to make you think. If I can make you think, you start asking questions. If you start asking questions, you start seeking out answers. I tell people, you don't have to believe a word that I say, go do your own research. Number two, provide you with the information, history, resources, books, websites, articles, video clips, etc. for you to go do your own research. Proper documentation ends all conversation. Unless you're arguing with a fool, then it doesn't make sense to argue with a fool, because if somebody comes along and sees the two of you arguing, they won't know which one is the fool. All right? Number three is information that we obtain. It's not to debate people on Facebook, talk negatively about our elders, prepare to assassinate people on YouTube, things like this. The information that we take in has to bring about behavior modification. It has to change the way you think, feel, act, and behave, ultimately change your results. This is why our motto is right now is correct wrong behavior. All right? Everybody understand that? Okay, let's continue quickly. Hey, Terry, do me a favor. Let me know when we get to 3 o'clock, okay? All right, because we're gonna take a break at 3:15. We'll take a break at 3:15. We'll take a 30-minute break. We come back at 3:45. Go from 3:45 to 4:15. Finish this presentation. We'll take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll do an hour of Malcolm X 50 years later. Why is he still relevant? And then we're done. Okay, just so everybody knows. Yeah. And also bathrooms out this door to the right, all the way in the back. That's like the most important thing to know about this place. Okay. Now, Dr. Jeffries, once again, one of my teachers, I interviewed him Friday, and when he teaches, also Professor James Small as well, they're good friends. When these brothers teach, they deal with the pyramid project. Okay, here's pyramid of Khafre and Giza, and they talk about how African history and culture lays your foundation, gives you your VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles. Values, interests, and principles. It influences the two sides of the pyramid: economic empowerment, political empowerment. Doesn't matter how much money you have, if you don't have this foundation in place, you won't know what to do with it. Consequently, we spend about 98% of our dollars on people who don't look like us because that foundation is not in place. If you don't have control of the economics, you never have control of the politics. Period. Okay. And in some presentations, I go deeper into this, but I want to let people know there are two main ways to understand what politics is. Okay. And at some point in this presentation, I have to talk about what's going on in Indiana. Because, okay, let me ask you a question. How many people listen to Millie Guy's show? Okay. Who heard the show Thursday? Now Thursday, you know, I was on Cliff Russell's show, right? And Mildred's my girl. I ain't trying to beat up on her. But you heard me on Cliff Russell's show Thursday, right? So did you hear Mildred's show on Thursday when she had the political roundtable? And she had Reverend Charles Williams on from National Action Network. You heard that? Okay, did you hear the call about boycott? Okay, did you hear the question that was submitted? The question that was submitted was,
we boycotting a lot of our people.
No, that wasn't the question that was submitted. The question that was submitted is, when are civil rights leaders going to start using economic boycotts? Because that was something that was very central to the civil rights movement back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s. Okay, and the question, she said, came from Michael from downtown. The question came from me, but that's not the whole thing that I asked. And I gave him my full name. I said, this is from Michael Imhotep, and I gave it to a producer, and she gave it to her. I appreciate Mildred for asking the question, but the question, what I said was, in addition to that, I said, when we look at what's going on in Indiana, they are using economic boycotts to fight against the religious law. Yeah. Even though marching, you do see some protests, but that ain't what the media's focused on. They're focused on corporations like Salesforce.com, Angie's List, Eli Lilly, Apple, either boycotting or threatening to boycott. So that's the question that I asked, but they didn't answer all of it, and then he gave some weak-ass response. So I got a little information on that. Well, I got a lot of information on it, actually, but a little bit that I'll probably get a chance to share in this presentation. And I've talked about this before, because I'm going to keep asking these questions. No offense to anybody. If you're National Action Network, NAACP, no offense to anybody, but I'm going to keep asking this question until one of these civil rights superstars gives me a legitimate, decent answer. Because when you study the history of the civil rights movement, economic boycotts were central. When you go, even before the civil rights movement, there was a boycott of the Montgomery bus system in 1906. This is before December 5th, 1955. Okay? And that bus boycott that started December 5th, 1955, it started as a one-day boycott, but it lasted 381 days. But that's not what ended segregation on the bus lines in Montgomery. Did you know that? That's not what ended segregation. What ended segregation was the lawsuit of Browder versus Gale that came out of that movement, filed February 1st, 1956. And that case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And in December 20th, it finally came down to Montgomery, Alabama, that it was unconstitutional for the Montgomery bus system to boycott against African Americans there. Now, when you study that lawsuit, and I did a presentation at the Charles H. Wright Museum, January 19th of this year for Dr. King's Day celebration. And some people, I think some people didn't like what I said, but I backed up what I said. I also talked about how the civil rights movement wasn't a non-violent movement. I talked about that as well. Nobody wants to talk about Deacons for Defense and Justice. They don't want to talk about Robert F. Williams and the Black Guard. They don't want to deal with any of that stuff. Okay. And check out this book. Write this down. This nonviolent stuff will get you killed. How Negroes with Guns made the civil rights movement possible. That's by Professor Charles Cobb. Okay, who was a member of SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And he was a field secretary for SNCC for 5 years, organizing the rural Mississippi. And he wrote a book, This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed. How Negroes with Guns made the civil rights movement possible. Okay, and he talked about how he said that most of the organizing during the civil rights movement took place in the South. The majority of it took place in the South, and it took place in the rural South. And those people that lived Mississippi, Alabama, all Georgia, all places like that, those black people, they had guns because they grew up in a gun culture. You had guns to shoot critters, you grew up on a farm, things like this. And he said, look, he said the people told him, look, we understand that you're non-violent, but we're not. And we're not going to let these white people kill you. Because that's what happened. They had to fight night riders, they fight the Klan, all types of stuff like that. And it was people with guns that protected the civil rights workers down there. Some got killed. Goodman, Schwerner, Cheney, the first day of Freedom Summer. First day they got down there, they went missing. And they were killed by them. Okay? But he wrote about that in that book. Roland Martin, who shows on the Empowerment Radio Network, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. He has an old time slot. He interviewed Professor Charles Cobb for 2 hours. And this brother broke down his history. He also talked about Fannie Lou Hamer. Now, we hear the quote from Fannie Lou Hamer about I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. We don't hear the quote about Fannie Lou Hamer, where she talked about how she kept a shotgun in every corner of the house, and she said the first cracker that comes in here is getting shot. We don't hear that about Fannie Lou Hamer. Okay? You got to check out that book. Also, watch the documentary. Now, this is on YouTube called Negroes with Guns. Negroes with Guns. Now, this is the history of Robert F. Williams and the Black Guard. Now, Robert F. Williams was the president of the Monroe, North Carolina NAACP. Okay? And he organized black gun clubs in the early 60s. And they defended themselves against the Klan, things like that. And they talked about how when the Ku Klux Klan, they would drive a procession down the street and drive through the black neighborhoods, things like this. A lot of the black people would run into the house, pull the shades down. The Black Guard would get their guns, they would come out on the street, stand up in the line, and stare the Klan down with their guns. And he said the Klan just kept going by. Because they said the Klan, they believed in white supremacy, but they weren't willing to die for white supremacy. This is in the documentary. Go check that out. Negroes with Guns. It's by Robert F. Williams. When you study the civil rights movement, they don't even talk about Robert F. Williams. How is that? How do you talk about the civil rights movement and don't talk about the Deacons for Defense and Justice? Who oftentimes provided armed security for Dr. King. And they were hired by CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, to protect civil rights workers. How do you do this? How many people familiar with Thomas Dartmouth Rice, T.D. Rice? Okay, this man is known as the father of the minstrel shows. When we look at some of the negative images of African Americans in this country, African people, Negroes, whatever you want to call them, Moors, whatever. All right, when you look at some of the images, we can go back to 1828, 1829. Okay, T.D. Rice, he, according to the story, now he was known as he was an entertainer, a white entertainer at this time, European, Caucasian entertainer. I use the term European because Caucasian came about in the 1770s when Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, who was the head of the history department at the University of Göttingen in Germany. And he stratified humanity into 5 categories. He's the one who coined the term Caucasian. So I use Europeans, but you want to use Caucasian, that's fine. According to the story, he sees a slave boy or male tending to some animals, okay? And the slave boy is doing a dance, and it becomes known as the Jim Crow dance. And what he does is he takes that dance, puts on tattered, torn clothing, develops a southern dialect to imitate black slaves, and he creates this Jim Crow character. This becomes a hit, white people love it, and then you start having all these other white men imitating this, okay? And T.D. Rice is known as the father of the minstrel shows. Now, minstrel shows become a huge form of entertainment during slavery in the South and in the North, okay? When we go back and look at this right here, minstrelsy, okay? American Heritage Dictionary, go to answers.com, look up minstrelsy, the art or profession of a minstrel, a troupe of minstrels, ballads and lyrics sung by minstrels. Okay, here's one of the early minstrel acts or teams, founded by Dan Emmett in 1843 in New York City, the Virginia minstrels. They're performing in blackface. Everybody knows what blackface is, right? Okay, good. All right, I'll pass that test. Everybody knows what blackface is. All right. Now, when we look at Jim Crow, the Jim Crow was a dance that started on the plantation as a result of dancing being outlawed in 1690. On some plantations, they outlawed dancing. Dancing was said to be crossing your feet by the church, so the slaves created a way of shuffling and sliding to safely glide around the laws without crossing their feet. If you check out the documentary Ethnic Notions, it came out in 1986. It's narrated by Esther Rowe, okay, who's Florida Evans did now. So I met Esther Rowe before she died. I interviewed Bernadette Stannis, who was filming Evans, interviewed her. This is a fantastic documentary. Has anybody seen it? Ethnic Notions, try to Google it. The transcript is online. I've read through the transcript 3 times of the documentary. It's a hell of a documentary because they go through and break down a lot of the origins of the stereotypical images that we see. The Sambos, the Coons, the Mammies, the Bucks, all those things, okay? Now, the slaves had a saying for their cunning and skirting around the law. Will about and turn about and jump just so. Every time I will about, I jump Jim Crow, okay? And this became this became the name of the Jim Crow character, and later the Jim Crow law that we all hear about and some of you all experienced in the South.